Semi-ironic, harmonic, invading comments. You wanted a paralytic, a mystic, an unfortunate piston. Balance of panic is fading to a number of planets who granted a breeze besides all the peril it landed. A woman standing has landed upon a valley, reminding the broken homes and breathing in the bitter Atlantic. We roam, illuminating and fading, the colors remaining and celebrating bandages of delicate hate. The center painting is an image of constellation stations. Patience has no place or taste of grace, and relating to races and the color of cases. Constant waste of space where the battered and the brave say we have got it backwards. Is not the answer. Has said it after reason screams out loud. The crowd reaction wants satisfaction. Your calm collection, deeper sense of doubt. If lust is pastime and trust is asinine, the rust of material excuses what you can't find. Blind to the error of your ways, dime by dime. In hindsight, the truth is in the fourth grade. Is it black as the night? Is it bleak? Is it bright? Is it centigrade or Fahrenheit? Shine thine eyes upon the weakest soul. Comfortable is the role of the idiot to old. God damn it! Is it blasphemy I've landed? You do nothing with your fake shit and leave the wounded stranded on your throne. You accuse me of a crime unknown. You without sin can cast the first stone. As if the party never stops, we're blasting 1400 watts. It's late in the game, but we still demand our props. I'm breathing fire like Godzilla. Ounce for ounce, we're cooking pasta from gorilla. Killer monsters, imposters, and rosters with big...
So what role will you play? What role will you play in overcoming poverty? Right, because I think that's exactly why we're here today. Now, I know you've been watching online and you've seen us talk about Udicci Presents Udicci, and people are going, what is all that about? And in fact, if you've been anything that we've been going for the past 2 or 3 years, 4 years now, you'll understand that most people don't understand Udicci, and I've got to be honest, sometimes we don't even understand ourselves. And that's okay, because we actually have to admit that we don't know everything, and sometimes we're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. In fact, 9 times out of 10, we're just flying by the seat of our pants, and to say that right now we're not doing that wouldn't be, exactly, I don't know, accurate. Anyways, welcome to Udicci Presents Udicci. This is the moment we've been waiting for many years, and it's simply this. We're ready to go. Are you? That's what it means. We know that social media is an incredibly powerful tool that is not being used the way that it could be used. So we went about actually creating a social media platform that we could come together and begin working collaboratively to solve very real human problems. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But mostly what we're here to talk about today is what's going on right here in Rochester. I've heard it said that if you're going to let your light shine, and it's going to shine around the world, that it needs to shine brightest right at its source. And we live right here in Rochester, New York, and we need to get moving. We need to start making a difference in our community. We're going to talk a little bit about credit unions, quite a bit about credit unions, because I personally believe that our entire economic structure is broken, and it's time to start coming back and valuing individuals. And when it comes right down to it, and I think that I have some friends in the audience right now that agree with me, we don't really need cash, we just need to value one another, that we can actually find ways of helping one another grow, and that we can start lifting people up with simply the hearts that we have, the talent that we have, that if we would actually just get out and show love instead of simply talking about it online, that we could begin making a difference. So we're here to talk a little bit about that. But before we go too far, I want to let you know first and foremost that everything we're talking about today ultimately leads to hope. You see, Udicci is committed to hope above all things. And I have to be sincerely honest with you. We came up with that tagline. If you've seen it before, it's Credito Spes. It means committed to hope. We came up with that tagline many, many years ago. And the reason we came up with that is we felt that we actually had to live out the words that we were going to be speaking. We thought that so many people were out there just running their mouths and chattering, and that there was so much noise that if we didn't actually live out the words we were speaking, that we were really no better than the rest of the noise, and we had to shut our mouths. because all we were doing was adding to the problem. Now, if any of you know me, you know that I can't shut my mouth, so I had to have a choice. I had to actually step up and deliver on what it was we were talking about, or I had to go away quietly. And I'm going to tell you, the word commitment inside of itself has taken on a new meaning for me, because I will tell you, each and every day for the past many months, I've awoke and I said, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to get up and go someplace that I have so little control and so little capability of making a difference. But I said, no, we are committed to making a difference. We are committed to hope. And for me, personally, that has been a journey of, through, if you will, perseverance. And many of you know this verse where it simply says, it is through perseverance that we find our character, and through character we find hope, and that hope is never disappointed. I know this about myself. It is through perseverance that I have actually found a person that I'm okay with. And it's not because I get to live out what I want each and every day. It's simply because I'm being shown time and time again the people that we should be. We need to be people who get up off of our couch, get out from behind the screens, get out into the streets, because there are people dying. Literally and figuratively, but here in Rochester, New York, we know that there are people dying. We hear about the crime in Rochester, New York. There is a direct correlation between poverty and crime, and we know these things. And it makes me really wonder, when I start to think about that quote that we saw in that, it says, I cannot reconcile a best life for my children if the same is not true for their community. That is such a beautiful heart. Think about that. If you have children, I have children, I look at them and they are my pride and they are my joy, and I know they are so much better than I will ever be, and I hope for their best life. And I have to tell you, when I heard that quote, that I cannot reconcile a life best for my children if the same is not true for their community, I was offended. I was offended because I had never thought that way. That my heart didn't care that way. Yeah, I wanted to make a difference, and I wanted to be the guy who was like, hey, we can do something, we can do something. But the woman who spoke those words, they naturally flowed out of her mouth. They weren't something she had to think about. She meant it. She actually understood that you cannot have the best possible life for your children if your community in and of itself cannot have its own best possible life. And you know, many people would look and say that you guys over at Udicci, you're just pie in the sky, you're idealists, nothing's ever going to change. And that's the thing. I'd rather go down proving that something can change, that we can make a difference, than just to sit there once again going, all right, nothing's going to change, let me go hide in my corner. And I'm going to tell you this, I don't think we can any longer go hide in our corners. I'm going to say that we are approaching an economic revolution. How much do you follow and how far do you go into that? We are an economic development company. Udicci is an economic development company that provides software to collaboratively connect people to provide solutions and work through social media for one another's good. But if you look around, the signs are clear. We are approaching an economic revolution. We've been following models and systems for so many years that we've been told this is how we're going to have prosperity. And if I get up on my soapbox for just a minute, I can't fathom how it is that we can sit there and buy into the idea time and time and time again that if we only had more debt, then we would be more prosperous. Think about that. If we only had more debt, then we'd be more prosperous. That doesn't work for your family. We know that that's the case. We cannot live burdened by debt and think that we have some wonderful life. Yet we have a government, we have a system that turns around and tells us that the solution to prosperity is debt. The system is broken and it's dying under its own weight. We can no longer continue to pay the ridiculous amounts that are going to servicing debt while people are dying in the streets. We are approaching an economic revolution. We hear time and again about the 1%. The 1%, and so many rally against the 1%. And surely I would like to say that they are so greedy and they should just give us the money. And certainly greed is a problem. But greed exists at every level of the socioeconomic scales. It's not simply the 1%. But Tim, if you will put up that one slide, you'll see that 1% of our country, 1% of the people in America hold 40% of the wealth. Think about that for just a moment. 1% of the people in our country hold 40% of the wealth, while the remaining 80%, not that there's 19% in the middle, but 80% of the people share 7% of the wealth. That's a broken system, right? That's obviously a broken system. And then we looked at that last year. We spent $290 billion as a country paying interest on debt. We have 46.5 million people in poverty around the country, and if we just take that, that ends up being $4,900 for each man, woman, and child in poverty. Now, I know all the Keynesians out there, they're going to sit there and go, no, you've got it all wrong. But here's the reality. Back in the early days, sure, it might have been Americans who were sitting here going, okay, government, we'll loan you the money. But now that money is largely going to foreign countries. Right? China holds a ton of our debt. Japan holds a ton of our debt. So that $290 billion is not being spent back into our communities. And that's just flat out wrong. We have a country that has built itself on debt, and we keep telling it that it is good, and it is not, and it is about to collapse. We are coming into a time that the entire infrastructure, our entire economy is going to change, and you need to be aware of that. You need to be aware that it begins back at relationships. And that's what we're looking to do, is to start building relationships. We're actually asking people to get out of their houses, get out from behind your screens, and get out on the streets and to start making a difference. Now, I have no idea where I am, and this is kind of what I always do. I just go off on tangents, and that's a good thing. I guess when we did this, we started out with the idea that this was going to be Udicci's version of a TED Talk, and we were going to introduce our software. And it's become something a little bit more than that. It's become a movement here in Rochester, New York, that's called Citizen 585. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But before we go too far into Citizen 585, I do want to talk about credit unions. Credit unions, I believe, to be the real difference that we can make in America. Now, if you aren't familiar with credit unions are simply member-owned, non-profit banking institutions. And you need to kind of let that sit on your head. In one breath, just a few minutes ago, I was talking about the 1%. And how they have 40% of all of the wealth in America. And the vast majority of that wealth, of course, comes through technology these days, but also finance. The banking system as a whole is broken. We've got this Federal Reserve System that is nothing more than a collection of banks that our own government borrows against and then pays it back. All of that money that's getting shipped somewhere flows through the banking system. It could flow through local credit unions. It is actually possible that we can repurpose the way that we're using debt and the way that commerce actually is facilitated. Instead of money being placed into a bank that has its, headquarters in New York City or in Hong Kong or someplace else, we can begin putting our money and doing our transactions in local credit unions. But hear this, non-profit credit unions. And here's the interesting thing about non-profit. That doesn't mean that they can't create excess revenue or profit. When they do, though, it is returned back to the individuals. So think about this, all those who want to rail against the 1% and how the banks are all evil and greedy. We have a solution sitting in our own backyards that we could take all of that money, put it in our own backyard. And what happens when all of that money remains in your own community? It gets reinvested in your own community. People can come together and they can determine how that money is spent. As a member-owned credit union, it's its own little miniature democracy of money. And you have to let that sink in, that if you start to literally understand how our economies work, the micro-scale economies are always going to be better than your macro-scale economies. Now, I know there are many, again, that are going to disagree with me and say centralized planning is the answer to all things. But we started a war on poverty nearly 50 years ago, and we're continuing to lose. Centralized plans never work because they don't know what we need right here in Rochester, New York, any more than we know what is needed down in Atlanta, Georgia, or Burlington, North Carolina. We don't know what they need. I don't know what they need. You don't know what they need. But they know what they need. We need to empower the communities to begin making their own solutions. We need to begin empowering the communities to work together to lift one another up. And we need to bring the money back into our communities. Now just get this thought for a moment. Credit unions currently own about 7% of the market share in America. Let that sink in, 7%. That means 93% of the available money exists in banks. And why? Why do we do that? Well, yes, banks make it a little bit easier for us sometimes. They've got the newest, latest, and greatest technologies. But credit unions have what you need. I mean, let's face it, we just have to pay bills, right? We just have to get some loans to buy a car every now and then. We've got to get a mortgage. We've got to be able to fix our homes. Credit unions can do that. Is it a little bit inconvenient because credit unions might only have a couple branches and maybe it takes an extra 2 to 3 minutes? Sure, it really is. But I'm going to say it's far less inconvenient to do that than deal with 7 people being shot on a corner. If we could actually begin bringing the money back to our communities, where each one of us had a voice in the policies of how that money was being used in our community, we would, well, first off, it would require us to learn. And I know that that's one of those things like, oh, I don't have time. I just don't have time to learn. Well, we have social media. We have social media, which is this incredible tool. Social media, which has proven itself capable of changing the entire world. We've seen social media drive revolutions that have changed countries in 7 days. We've seen that social media basically comes between me and you because we sit behind the, we sit behind the screens and we can't even have relationships with one another. But we know undoubtedly that social media has changed the world. If we could actually embrace it and begin to use it intelligently, we could do things like learn about economies. Learn about the policies that would be best for our credit unions. Share information from one credit union to the next. What are they doing that's working, and would that apply in our community? We could actually begin to use that information for our good. We could cut out all the clutter, and we could begin using it for not only educational purposes, but for connections. We could begin to connect with one another on common initiatives. And that's another thing that we're seeing in the communities right now. We have so many people out there trying to do good. We have so many organizations out there trying to do good on their own. And then they try to connect with somebody else, and everybody's vying for a little bit of attention. How about this? What if we don't make it about me? What if we make it about us? What if each one of us decides just to kind of set aside our pride for a little bit and say, you know what? There's something really great that I want to do, but if we work together, maybe it'll be far better. That's a little bit more difficult of a situation. That requires us to kind of have a little bit of humility. And I'm going to say that in order for us to actually defeat poverty, which is what we're trying to do here, we're all going to have to eat a little humble pie every now and then. We're going to have to come down off our big horse thinking that we've got all the right answers and start listening to the collective solutions. We need to come together and say, what is it that we need? And we can get this done. We really can get this done. And that is exactly what Udicci was built for. We were built to help get it done. We do not have all of the answers. We do not have all of the solutions. Instead, we created a technology to respond to what others wanted. And we can show you that in a video real quick here, which was Citizen Rock. And as Tim cues this up, what this was simply a group of people got together through Facebook. Once again, the power of social media. They got together and said, we must do something. And they said, what can we do? And they decided together between a collective number of them that We needed a system that could connect people and organizations to government benefits and resources, because we found that there's just a log jam of people right now, and they're saying, how can we make this happen? So let's just kind of watch this video and see, this is all Udicci's here to do, is to make connections and help other people, and we can kind of show that.
Some ironic, harmonic, invading comments. You wanted a paralytic, a mystic, an unfortunate piston. Balance of panic is fading to a never planet. To granted a breeze besides all the peril it landed. A woman standing has landed upon a valley, reminded of broken homes and breathing in the bitter Atlantic. We roam, illuminating and fading, the colors remaining and celebrating bandages of delicate hate. The center painting is an image of constellation stations. Patience has no place or taste of grace, and relating to races and the color of cases. Constant waste of space where the battered and the brave say we have got it backwards. Is not the answer. Has said it after reason screams out loud. The crowd reaction wants satisfaction. Your calm collection, deeper sense of doubt. If lust is pastime and trust is asinine, the rust of material excuses what you can't find. Blind to the error of your ways, dime by dime. In hindsight, the truth is in the fourth grade. Is it black as the night? Is it bleak? Is it bright? Is it centigrade or Fahrenheit? Shine thine eyes upon the weakest soul. Comfortable is the role of the idiots of old. God damn it! Is it blasphemy I've landed? You do nothing with your fake shit and leave the wounded stranded on your throne. You accuse me of a crime unknown. You without sin can cast the first stone. As if the party never stops, we're blasting 1400 watts. It's late in the game, but we still demand our props. I'm breathing fire like Godzilla. Ounce for ounce, we're cooking pasta from gorilla. Killer monsters, imposters, and rosters with big flames at their concerts. Your engine's idle cause
So we're back. We're back, and I'm over my 15 minutes. So we're going to finish up this session real quick. Thanks to the audience that shows up here. Tune back in at 5 o'clock. Same thing, different story, different, and it'll be different all the rest of the night. Come on out to Flower City tonight for our after party. Ask questions, get involved. If you're ready to get involved right now, just get involved. Go out to Udicci.us. You're going to see this little button on the bottom that says Engage. Fill out that form. There's a couple roles that you can select from. If you're not sure, just select anything. Leave a note for us. And as we start getting this thing rolling, and based on who's doing what and when and what time, we'll get back in touch with you. But get going with us right now. That's Udicci.us. Check out Citizen 585, which we didn't even really talk about, which we definitely need to talk about, which means tune in at 5. Thanks a lot. All right, we got